This is the beautiful Linda. Linda's in her early 60s, and guess what? She's actually one of you guys. She's a subscriber to the channel, and she's had a lot going on in her life in the last few years that's been pretty tough on her. She recently reached out to me online because she's ready to start moving forward from all of those tough years, and she just wanted and needed a little bit of beauty help. And beauty help, that's what I do. Beauty help is my thing. Last week I went over to Linda's house for a new series on the channel called the Makeup Takeover series. I looked through the products that she had, I tossed what wasn't working, we kept what was, and then I took her shopping to, find some other options that she can have fun with and that will work better for her individual needs today. As promised in that video, today I'm going to show you a look that I created on her using the products that we bought and also some of the products that she already had. Hopefully this video will teach you some techniques or even about some products that will inspire you to try something new. Let's go. All right, so our very first step is to prime our eyelids. Give ourselves a nice, smooth, even, flawless canvas to blend shadows on top of. So what I did to prime Linda's lid is I just used a concealer and I set it with a powder that she already had. Now let's go ahead and move into the brows. So what I'm noticing with your brows, you've got lots of hair, which is great, but the only thing is that they're a little bit rounded, and that's just because we lived in the era of brow fucking, where we just overdid it. So the space between your crease and your brow right here, especially in here, is quite big. And that's just because you over-rounded them here. It's completely fine. We can totally change that with makeup. We can balance that out. The beginning of your brow is here. We want to kind of create a linear line through here so that we take away this roundness. So we are missing a line of hair here.
Yeah, so you're filling in the blanks almost.
Exactly. Now, whenever you do that, you also want to take your spoolie at the end. That's why every brow...
I keep forgetting that part. Yep. I don't really...
Yeah, the spoolie will soften out the pigment. So it will be really harsh because it's waxy. And the spoolie will turn it almost like powdery right before your eyes. Now, when you go from your nose to the end of your eyes, that's where your brow should end. So you're falling a little bit short. So I'm just following your natural hair growth and I'm sketching. So instead of doing a strong line, I'm doing tiny little short sketches. You want this part of your brow to be softer in pigment than this part of your brow. You want more definition here and less definition here.
Okay.
If you have too much definition here, what happens is you get this like angry face.
Yeah, like you're scowling.
Like you're scowling, yeah. So if you want to add more hair here, you don't want to shade it in too much. You just want to add little tiny hair strokes, and you can do that by sketching upwards and little tiny hair strokes very delicately. That will give you a little bit more shaping without harshness.
Good, I love it.
Yay, you're welcome.
Wow, big difference.
Hey, it's future Editing Gabi here. That's why I'm not fancy. I'm sorry to interrupt this video, but I just have something to say before you come after me in the comment section. The way that brows look on camera is actually quite different than the way that they look in real life, and it is unbelievably frustrating. So I did her brows. They looked really nice in real life, but as I'm editing the video, I realized that they look really out of balance on camera. A lot has to do with the lighting. It has to do with the camera angle, all of that. But anyways, I'm not gonna make an excuse about it. They look off, okay? So they're gonna look off while I do the rest of the makeup, but then at the end, when I realized they looked off, when I reviewed the footage before she left, I fixed them, so then they look great. So I know they look off. Don't come after me about it. They're gonna look good at the end though. Okay, now you can continue watching.
Now we can move on to eyeshadow. So the first thing that I did when I did Linda's eyes is I moved her into a chocolate palette with her beautiful warm complexion, her warm hair, her beautiful hazel eyes. Even the color she's attracted to and wear are really warm. She wore a forest shirt in the Makeup Takeover. She's wearing this brown sweater when she came in. Everything that she's attracted to is warm except for her makeup. All of the makeup in her bathroom was cool toned. So I bought her this beautiful palette by Smashbox. All of the details for the products, their names, the shades, even a link to purchase them, all that's going to be in the description box below. So in case you're curious, or if I'm not popping up the name on the screen, you will be able to find that in the description box below. I put a lot of time into creating those shopping lists for you guys, so that's helpful for you when you're making your purchase decisions. Now, whenever we're doing any type of eye, you want to start with the transition shade. So the transition shade is a shade that goes in the crease, and you want it to be a mid-tone shade, okay? okay? You want it to be mid-tone and you want it to be matte. So in this palette, this shade here, it's kind of a peachy matte mid-tone shade, is the perfect shade for a transition. Now that's gonna go on with a nice fluffy crease brush. You want it to be fluffy because you want it to be diffused and soft so that you get a separation from the crease to the lid without any type of harshness or carving. Now the next color that I dipped into was this beautiful kind of blushy peach. Now I went in with a flat brush. So this is more like a shadow brush. This is what Linda was using to kind of do her whole look, but she needed to upgrade her brushes because you need different brushes for different things. So this brush that she already had is great for adding shadow to the lid. Now, when you're using any type of shadow with sheen or with a little bit of reflection, you can absolutely do that. If you're over the age of 50, 60, 70, 80, it doesn't matter. You can absolutely do that. It looks beautiful. There's this misconception that you can't use anything with light reflecting properties as you get older, but that is absolutely not true. It still looks great as long as you keep it on that lid. Now, the way you want to apply it, because you want to have a little bit of pigment payoff, is you want to build that coverage. So the way we build that coverage is by stippling, okay? Instead of swiping that shadow across, you're not going to get the pigment payoff. You want to press the shadow into the lid, either using a flat brush like this or using your fingertips. Now, she's a makeup lover. She really loves makeup, so I wanted to intensify it a little bit. So what I did is I went into that Lid Colors Darker Neighbor, and I used that denser brush to then smoke out the outer corners of the eye. So I just went from like halfway into the lid and I smoked out in a sideways V here at the outer corners to add that little bit of extra shadow and drama. Now you can stop here. You don't have to keep going and building the look, but the next thing I wanted to do was create a bit of a halo effect. Now I love doing this effect on women with hooded eyes because it really opens the eyes up like crazy. So all you have to do is dip your finger into a vanilla or like a whitish shade, something with some shine that's very light in tone, and press it into the center of the lid. Now I like doing this with my finger. That's where I get the most pigment payoff. I've already done that beautiful wash of shine. I've done a little bit of a darker outer corner, and then I just pop that halo right in the center, and you can see here that it just gives the most subtle kind of burst of light. Like I said, it's called a halo eye. And it's just so beautiful on her and like on everyone. I love doing this technique on everyone. I do it on myself almost every time I put on makeup. For her liner, I didn't want to go in with something harsh or something waxy that was going to be difficult to blend. I wanted something very soft for her. So all we did was use the darkest brown matte shadow from that palette as her liner. What you can do is actually spray an angled brush, so a nice, tight, and sharp angled brush, spray it with a setting spray. This one is the NYX one. It's the Radiant Finish. I wanted that for her complexion later. Dip that brush into the nice dark brown shadow and then carve out that lash line with that shadow. You're gonna get something that looks exactly like a liner, but it's more diffused, more softly blended. It's done in a much easier and faster way. Now on the corners of the eye, I really wanted her eyes to lift, but because she has hooding here, we don't want the line to interfere with the hooding. So I stopped before her lashes stopped, and I tilted my brush and went up into the crease, and then I stopped there. So you can see here that, you know, when she opens her eyes, it's not cutting or interfering that line, but it is creating a bit of a lift in the corners, which is a very subtle and soft way to do a wing on someone that has a hooded eye. Now here is my trick for fallout, okay? I always do the eyes first because I hate fallout. I hate it when it stains everything. It drives me absolutely crazy. So what I do is I just take a Q-tip. I love the pointed Q-tips. I buy them at the drugstore. I dip them in under eye moisturizer or a nice gentle moisturizer of your choice, and I use that as an eraser, and that completely wipes away all of the under eye fallout, and it does it while simultaneously prepping the under eye skin for concealer.
Something that's really cool too, so if you look straight, if you want to give yourself a little lift in the eye, you take your Q-tip and you go like this, and you're basically creating like a line where the shadow
again, you're getting rid of the makeup cut.
Yeah, so then you don't have like too low of a line of shadow.
Right.
And you get it like really precise with the...
Oh, okay, love it.
Is that cool?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's move on to complexion. I'm really excited about this part of the video because this was a bit of a revelation for her. So she has the IT Cosmetics CC cream already in her kit. She's finding it a little creasy, but she likes how it's like dewy and moist. She has very dry skin. Okay, so she ended up buying the Estee Lauder Double Wear, which is a recommendation that I give in a lot of my videos. And I've had this comment from you guys as well, from my subscribers, that the Estee Lauder Double Wear is too drying. Okay, this is the thing. Estee Lauder Double Wear is a bulletproof foundation. This foundation will last you from 6 a.m. until 11 p.m. Even if you do a workout in between, it will not budge. The coverage is flawless. It is a beautiful formula, but if you have very dry skin, typically things that are long wear are drying. It's just the way it is. But you can still use it and make it a little bit more sheer by combining it with different things. Here's a product that's really affordable, that kind of melts really well with this specific foundation, that will give you so many different ways to wear it. So this is the e.l.f. product. It's called Halo Glow, and it's a direct dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter, I think. I will pop it up here. This is a really cool product because you can use it in a couple of different ways. So you can use it on your skin on its own. It's gonna give like tiny little bit of coverage, but tons of glow. Or you can use it as a spot highlighter. You can put your foundation on, you can put it on your cheeks, the bridge of the nose, wherever you want that glow. But you can also use it to mix into foundations to make them glowier and even more sheer. So you can basically turn something that's a matte finish into something that's like a radiant satin finish. In this case, this is how much of the e.l.f. I used. This is how much of the foundation I used. I mixed it all together using my fluffy foundation brush, and then I buffed it into the skin. Now let's move on to everyone's biggest hurdle, which is the under eyes.
So you want to apply it in the area that's dark, which in your case is here.
Right.
In people's case, it's right in here. That's where you have hollowness.
Yep.
But you don't want to apply it here because you're going to start getting too much product buildup, and then you want to lift. So you want to apply it here.
Okay.
So we have 2 spots, and then instead of rubbing, you want to pat. Pat, 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 pat. That's going to build
that's where I'm
coverage.
going to have to learn.
Yeah, patting builds coverage.
Yeah.
Dragging diffuses coverage. But wherever we want extra coverage, we pat. Your concealer shouldn't really be lighter than the color of your skin. It should be the same as your skin color.
Typically covering brown, right? Like they're darker skin, right?
Yeah. So you want something like peachier and like the same level so that you can cover that, or else it's going to turn ashy. If you put something light on something dark, it turns that dark light thing into something ashy. So if you wanted more coverage now, you could then go back in after we've color corrected with a lighter concealer.
Okay.
But because your dark circles aren't a big issue,
No, it's not really.
I wouldn't do it.
No.
Because then you're layering so many products. The more you layer, the more potential you have to crease.
Right.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we're naturally gonna have to set the under eyes, okay? As soon as you take something creamy and you put it on skin that's warm, it's going to melt into the creases. Everyone has wrinkles around their eyes, okay? Even if you're a child, you have wrinkles around your eyes because it's movement, right? It's the way that the skin folds around the eyes. So you're going to get creasing no matter what. What I like to do for under the eyes is I like applying my corrector and concealer, or just my concealer. In this case, we just used a concealer. It was more than enough for her needs. And then I let it chill. You want to let that product oxidize a little bit. You want to let that product just settle into the skin. Then you can see where it's creasing. You can blend that away and then set it lightly. So we'll get back into that in a second. Now let's move on to contour and bronzer. This is one of my most asked questions in the comment section. Can you contour if you're older? Can you use bronzer? Should you use bronzer? Absolutely, you can do anything you want. Makeup is about self-expression and everyone is so individual. Now, the thing with contouring heavily on a more mature face is that contour is always cool toned because it's supposed to mimic a shadow, and a shadow is cool toned. Now, as we age, our faces lose volume. Okay, so if you're adding contour, you're creating more volume loss. That's the whole point of it. So sometimes it can make an older person look a little bit skeletal or a little bit gaunt, and you definitely don't want that. So depending on your face shape, right, if you need to add volume loss in certain areas or not, you can also do it by using a bronzer as a contour, or what I refer to as brontouring. Brontouring is a really easy way to create shadows and dimension in a face, but doing it in a way that's not taking away too much volume. My favorite type of contour for an older skin is a cream contour. This one is by Chanel. There's lots of different dupes out there that aren't as expensive, but this one's great because it's a huge pot. The formulation is gorgeous and it looks absolutely beautiful on the skin.
So what I'm doing is like your cheekbone is here. So I'm placing this bronzer just under to create a contour, but it's not a heavy contour. Sometimes what can happen if we heavily contour more mature faces, it can look very skeletal because you've already had volume loss.
Right. Yep.
So you don't want to add more volume loss. So when you use a cool base contour, you add a little bit of volume loss effect that can be a little unflattering. So this will add dimension, but it does it in a way that it looks sun-kissed. So it's called bronzing.
Right. Yeah. Contouring.
After I got that bronzer on, like I said, we need to revisit the eyes. So I can see here that she's already started creasing. Again, completely natural. Every single person does this, no matter what age. So what you want to do before you set under the eyes, we've already kind of oxidized that concealer down a little bit. You want to look up, make sure that there are no creases, and you want to stipple away the crease if there is. If you're noticing a lot of creasing like up in here, that's normally where the creases happen. You can even kind of remove a little bit with your finger. When all the creases are gone, they have to be gone, you can go in and you can powder it to turn that cream product into like a satin finish, and then it's not gonna budge. You're setting it, so it's not gonna wanna move, or it's gonna move significantly less than if you don't set it. I know there's a lot of fear over setting products as we get older, because there's a lot of fear with drying, and there's a lot of fear with creating crepiness. I understand that, but you kind of have to choose what you want. If you want to choose to remove the darkness around the eyes, and that's what I will always choose. I would always choose a brighter under eye, then naturally it's going to crease if you use cream. If it's gonna crease, you have to set it a little bit. You have to, or it's gonna be so creased, it's gonna look terrible, okay? If you really hate that look, then you kind of have to choose having darkness over having it covered, because there's no way around it. So the way that I do it is really I just take away those creases and then I dip into a translucent powder, a powder that has no color. It comes off looking white, but when you apply it on the skin, it just melts, like it's sheer, it's completely like colorless. And I use a fluffy brush, again, fluffy to diffuse, and I just pat it very gently in that area to set that cream product, make it creaseless, but also not over dry it. Okay, if I were to go in with a sponge and really press it in, like the baking technique that we used to do, some people still do it, but it was really big like in 2018. If I were to do that, her eyes would be so dry. It would look so awful and crepey. This kind of technique of using a fluffy brush, patting it in, it's going to very softly set it without over drying the area. Now we can work under the eye. So whenever I'm working under the eye, I like going back in with my transition color, okay? The transition color that you use in the crease always looks great under the eye, always. It creates a really harmonious effect to the eye. Then I went in with my mascara and I applied it on the top and on the bottom lashes for a really beautiful definition. Okay, now let's move on to our cream blush. I absolutely love this cream blush by Winky Lux. This is the color Dodgy, which is a beautiful mauve. It's a gorgeous color on a warmer skinned person. Absolutely beautiful, blends into the skin like a dream. Now, what I like doing with the cream blush, I went in with this cream blush brush, but you can actually use just a normal blush brush for this as well. Don't feel like you need a very specific brush to use cream blush with. You can use just a normal blush brush, it will work fine. But one suggestion that I have for you, instead of putting it directly on the cheek, rub it on the back of your hand first. Make sure that that pigment is even and smooth amongst the bristles before you go in to the cheek, okay? That's going to create a much softer blend. Sometimes when we just dip it and we put it on, you're gonna get like these hot spots of pigment that you then have to blend. It can be a little bit annoying. So just go ahead and do it this way. It's gonna be like a nice even coat on the brush, then you can buff it in. Our next step is lip liner and lipstick. Now this was huge for her. She was really self-conscious about her lips because she finds that they bleed a lot and she finds she's had a ton of volume loss, which again, very normal things, right? So you can cheat a fuller mouth so easily as long as you have a fantastic lip liner. So what I like to do is I like to imagine a diagonal line going all the way down the center of the face, like cutting across the face. And then I started the Cupid's bow, and I overdraw where that Cupid's bow or that vermilion border used to be, okay? I do it on one side, then I go underneath and I do it on the other side. Then at the very ends, you wanna connect to the natural lip shape. If you don't, if you overdraw here, you start getting a really wide mouth, like a clown effect. You want the width here, but not necessarily here. Then I'm going over to the other side. I'm imagining that line and I am mimicking and copying that same shape that I already drew. Okay, now when you are finished doing that, you want to fill your entire lip line in with the lip liner. So your lip liner is almost like your first lipstick. Okay, I always say if I could only have one product, lipstick or lip liner, I would 100% choose lip liner any day. It lasts longer, it's way more precise. You can get that beautiful vermilion border ridge that we've lost or that maybe we never even had. You can do so much carving with a lip liner that you can't do with a lipstick, okay? And lipsticks bleed, lip liners don't, okay? So always start with that beautiful lip liner. Get that shape you want, fill the whole thing in, and you're gonna have a base that's going to last much longer than if you just used a lipstick or a gloss.
Crazy, right?
Really crazy. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Now what really tops it off, like what sells it,
Yep.
is the gloss. Once you add a gloss, it's like chef's kiss.
Then I went in with my City Lips Plumping Lip Gloss in Crimson. Again, I love this color. It's just a mauvey color. I really like the City Lips lip glosses. I talk about them a lot. They have a very dense formulation. So they're not very sheer and slippery. They're very dense. And the reason that I love that is they're much less likely to bleed. The plumping effect of them is great, but I like the fact that they don't bleed and their pigment payoff and their longevity of wear even better than the plumping effect. Okay, now we could stop here. We're totally good. We could stop here. I just fixed her brows a little bit, but I wanted to take it up a notch. I wanted to take her full glam, okay? She has 5 grandkids. We needed to give her full glamma all the way. So I went in with a half lash. How you do a half lash is so simple. So you just take your lash, you cut it in half, and instead of using the outer part of the lash, which most people do, I personally like using the inner part of the lash. It's not as long and obnoxious. It gives you a lift in the corner of the eye that's more believable and very natural. It also sits very comfortably on the eye. A full strip lash is much harder to put on for one. It's also not very comfortable. A half lash will give you lift with comfort with natural effect. It's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, see that?
As our final step, I wanted to bring her color. When I met her for the makeup takeover video, she had lined her eyes with green. It was a MAC eyeshadow in green and it looked beautiful. And I just thought, my gosh, I love you. You're not afraid of color. You're not afraid of makeup. So I picked up this really cool punchy green liner by NYX for her. And I just knew it would be literally perfect for her. So what I did for that is I actually just outlined the bottom. So not the waterline, not inside, but the outer part of the bottom. So we already shaded that with our transition shade. I just added a little bit of green there to give that sparkle, that pop, to make her eyes really shine through and to just do something a little bit more fun, right? Like a little bit more experimental. When I finished that off camera, I added a little bit more brow to her. Okay, I didn't want to bore you guys with that. Brows can be such a long and lengthy video, but she was missing a little bit of that inner tail. This is what Linda looked like when she came into the studio with her own makeup on. This is what she looked like with no makeup on. And this is how she looked after I created a custom application just for her. She felt beautiful and confident, and that's what all of this is about.
Do you feel beautiful?
I do. I love it.
Literally.
And this green is done.
Filler. You know what?
It really makes your eyes pop.
I hope that you remember to do something really special for yourself today and that you give yourself that self-love that you really, truly deserve. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. This video's over.